Welcome to episode 197 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. April is Sisters in Loss Infertility Awareness Month. All month long, we will be highlighting infertility journeys and stories. Today's guest and partner were diagnosed with infertility after trying to conceive for several months with no success, and both decided to go get checkups. She received positive results, but her partner had unfavorable results during his sperm analysis. Marsha Derice found a fertility doctor and proceeded with an intrauterine insemination, or IUI, that was unsuccessful. The IUI process was so overwhelming that they decided not to try another round. She found out she conceived naturally after experiencing pain in her abdomen, and her ER doctor confirmed her pregnancy and told her she was having an ectopic pregnancy. Marsha was immediately rushed into surgery to remove her fallopian tube. In today's episode, Marsha shares the emotional toll experiencing fertility challenges can have as a couple, especially seeing friends and family members having children, hosting baby showers, and feeling like something was wrong with her body. She finds out that she has fibroids that are larger in size that will need to be surgically removed in order to continue with the possible process of in vitro fertilization, or IVF. Today's episode is for you to listen to if you and your partner were both diagnosed with fertility challenges, have you had fibroids, and an ectopic pregnancy. Here is Marsha Derice. All right. Well, welcome, Marsha, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me.
I would love for you to begin by sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am Brooklyn, born and raised, from Brooklyn. I am married to my wonderful husband of 6 years. I'm also a New York City English teacher. What else about me? I'm a naturalista. My hair is natural. Been natural for about, I want to say 9-10 years now. I'm the oldest of 4. I'm the only girl. Yes, and I've been trying to conceive since 2016.
Yes. Well, take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your trying to conceive, loss, infertility journey.
Okay, so my husband and I got married in 2014. And, like most couples, we decide, we're not going to have kids right away, and we also, wanted to just explore and be with each other as husband and wife, just us two without any distractions and stuff like that. And so, and we never had sex before we got married. We're also Christians as well. I mean, not saying that all Christians don't have sex before marriage, but we wanted to practice purity as much as possible. It was hard. The struggle was real, but we waited and, we had sex the night of our wedding. And I've never been pregnant before, never been pregnant ever. He's not the first person I dated or was with, I'm not a virgin or anything like that, but I just never been pregnant. And so when we decided that we'll just wait, 8 months into the marriage and then wait to have a family. So I'm thinking, okay, once that happens, we're going to get pregnant right away, so cool. We're just going to, not try to prevent it. We're just going to live our lives, enjoy sex, things like that. And then it will happen when it happens. And that didn't happen. We did not get pregnant right away. So I'm like, okay, and I started to talk about it more. And people were like, yeah, your cycle and you got to be more intentional maybe. And, have sex when you're ovulating, this and that and the third. So we kept doing that for a few months. And then finally, I think it was at the end of the year, I want to say at the end of either 2015 or 2016, I said, if we don't have, if we're not pregnant at this point, we're going to have to seek, professional help and see what's going on. And that's what we did. So we went our separate ways. He went to go, check himself out and you do a sperm analysis and all that stuff. And I had gotten a GYN. My GYN said that, everything's normal and I'm all good to go to be a mom. All systems are go. And then my husband's results, we had to wait for a couple of more weeks. And I remembered it was the top of the year in January. We got the results back. It was maybe a few days after the new year. And his results came out negative, 0% sperm, nothing there to, reproduce with. And we were devastated and just stuck. like, how could this be? This make no sense. We don't understand. Like, we were just really distraught. Like, it really hurt our marriage in a way. Like, we were just kind of in shock. And there were moments and times where, you know, we weren't intimate, not because we didn't love each other, but it just was hard. Because now sex became, well, you know, we know this data. It made it hard to have sex because we knew the outcome would be nothing. Like, we wouldn't have a baby if we had sex. So that was our goal. And after a while, you know, we got over that hump and still tried and tried. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I think we had a conversation about what could have been, you know, what happened in his past. When he was younger, he did have a surgery when he was about 10 years old, and it was in his stomach, but then apparently they went through his testicles to do the surgery. And I think something happened with that there. And he's also never impregnated anybody before either. So we literally had no idea what was going on in our bodies and, you know, trying to conceive. We had no clue. We just thought once we have sex, it's going to happen. And now that we're trying to conceive, you know, we start learning more about our bodies and going to past history and trying to learn, okay, this is probably what happened, or, you know, now we just have an awareness of our bodies and what we can and can't do, or what's stopping us, and all the barriers. You know, we kept trying, being more intentional. You know, I have the app, I have the Glow app. I'm checking my period, I'm tracking my cycle, just tracking everything. There was one time, I remember right before his birthday, I felt I was pregnant. I was feeling nauseous. I was feeling like, you know, certain smells were irritating me. And I was like, oh, this would be dope. You know, like right before his birthday, I could surprise him. Like, I think I'm pregnant. So I got my pregnancy test, and because I think I was also kind of late as well, like maybe by a few days, not like by much. And I was like, I think I'm pregnant. I think that might be a sign. And then got the test and it was negative. So I was like, well, that sucks. So again, we kept trying and kept trying. And finally, we decided to go to seek like a fertility doctor. And, you know, that process was very enlightening and very informative. And some of it was stressful because, you know, you're hearing things from the doctor and hearing the no's or what can't be. And you're hearing about IVF, you're hearing about all sorts of other ways. And I'm like, God, I just want to conceive naturally. Like, what is the problem? Like, this is ridiculous. And God was probably like, it's not going to happen naturally. Maybe, you know, maybe the journey is different for you and Gio, my husband's name. And I was like, it was hard for me to accept that. Like, we may not be able to conceive naturally. I remembered there's a few times where I had some hope, like little hopes and glimmers, like this is going to happen. I had a very distinct dream in 2016. I think it was, 2016 or 20. I'm getting the 2 years mixed up. There was a very distinct dream I had where I was in the bathroom and I took the test and it came out positive, and I was celebrating, and my grandma was in that dream. And the reason why that was very significant was A, my grandma had passed in 2015, and B, before the last conversation that she and I had when she was alive was her saying that she's gonna, you know, this was after my honeymoon, and I came to go visit her at my mom's house, and she was like, you know, whenever you guys are ready, you know, when you guys have kids, I'll watch the kids. And I'm like, Grandma, you're older now. Like, you can't watch the kids like you used to watch us. And so that was our little joke or whatever. And then that was the last time she and I had spoken. And so for me, having that dream was like, to me, the climax of all things. It was just, I wrote it down and everything. I'm like, that's a sign. God is giving me hope. You know, like, this is a promise that he was giving me. And her being there in that dream was definitely more of a clear sign. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll hold on to that. And I remember that very day I had that dream, I was getting ready to take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, oh, so I had that dream. So I'm about to go take the test right now. That means that God is giving me a sign before I even go to the bathroom that it's going to be positive. It was negative. And I was so hurt. And I'm like, I felt played. I felt like that was a trick. And I'm like, why would you give me that dream, God, if that wasn't the case? And obviously now after I, cried it out and all that, I was like, okay, that was God giving me the hope and the sign that you will be pregnant. You will. It's just not right now. I think the not right now part is what I've been dealing with. Like most women who are in this situation, like the wait is hard. I have the promise. I know it's there. I've seen God give other people dreams of me being pregnant. People I haven't even seen or spoken to in years will send me an email or a private message like, yo, I had a dream that you were pregnant. And I'm like, that's crazy. haven't even spoken to you in so long, and God dropped a dream about me. So there's signs and there's things, you know, I feel like God is like being intentional about that and like putting the dreams of other people's lives and then telling me about it. And I feel like that gives me hope. But still the weight, you know, there's times when it's really difficult to really believe and hold on to that. And so I have that hope. And then so going into the fertility doctor, you know, we spent time with her, and then, you know, one of the options was IUI. Never heard of it before. I was like, what's that? And it's basically where they, you know, inseminate the sperm. You know, it's less aggressive than IVF. So we're like, okay, cool. My insurance covered it and all that. I believe we did the IUI in 2018, like the top of 2018. And that process was really annoying. I had to go to work super early. No, I had to go to the doctor super early, to the clinic, way before work started. And then even before the procedure. And I was just like, I'm a teacher. I'm like, okay, my work starts at 8:30. I have to be there at like maybe 7. Then you have to wait. Finally did it. You know, it was kind of uncomfortable, you know, a little crampy and all that. And I'm like, okay, I hope this works. You know, and when we did not get pregnant, I was literally just discouraged. I was so annoyed by that. I did all that work, you know, sacrifice, you know, my mornings, you know, to go do this procedure. And, you know, he and I were together the entire time. He had to do his thing. And, you know, it was just frustrating. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to. I don't want to do another round, because, you know, you can. And I had a coworker who did the IUI. She did a couple of rounds, and she was also trying to have her second child, and she had failed attempts or whatever. So I'm like, maybe the average is like 3 or something like that. But I feel like for me, I didn't even want to do the second one, because I was so like, I'm over it. This was too much. I'm emotionally drained. I can't even take this anymore. So I did only 1 round of IUI, and I think that was the last time I saw the fertility doctor. Like, not to say that she did anything wrong. It was just I didn't want to go through the process. I didn't want to entertain it anymore. And I'm like, I'm just going to continue trying to have it naturally. Like, I don't want to go to the doctor right now. Like, I can't take this anymore. So that was 2018. Yeah. So we did not seek a doctor. We didn't do any of that stuff. But during that time, when I was seeing the doctors in 2016, 2017, I also discovered I had fibroids. And I'm like, okay. I know fibroids from my aunt. She also had it, and she literally almost lost her life during the surgery. So I was aware of what fibroids were at that point. I also learned that it's very common, all that stuff. And I'm like, okay. But I had it, and it was small. Doctor said, okay, it's like 3 centimeters, nothing to worry about. It's not even nothing for you to, you know, bother with. So I'm like, okay, I guess. Hopefully that doesn't interfere. And it wasn't near my uterus at all. So, I mean, it was behind it, but it wasn't like in the lining. So it wasn't going to affect me in that way for fertility, or even with my period. I had normal periods, you know, they came every month. So I didn't have any real reason to be worried about my fibroids. So I had the fibroids. It was 3.6 centimeters at the time. And then, so again, I didn't seek a doctor. I was seeing my GYN here and there, but for my checkups. But in terms of fertility, I was like, no. 2019 happened. So I remembered in April of 2019, I felt very ill. Like, my period came, and it was just like the worst period I've ever had in my life. I felt like I was going to throw up. I was at work that day, and I'm like, okay, I've had cramps. I've always had cramps all my life, but this is something else. I don't know what's happening. This is killing me. And I kind of like let it pass by, in a sense, as if like, okay, I'm just having a really bad cramp episode. But it was very excruciating, very noticeable. I was like, this is abnormal for me. Where I felt like I was going to throw up. That was not typical. And so I bled. So I'm thinking that's my period. I'm bleeding, you know, whatever. I think at the end of May, I had this really bad pain in my abdomen, like I believe it was on my left side. It was so bad. I went to work that day. I think the night before, I was feeling the pain. I kind of like slept it out, or I tried to like, okay, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to ER. Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe I ate something bad, or I have bad gas. I don't know. Go to work the next day. I'm in pain. my principal was like, you got to go. You have to leave. I literally came to work at 8:30, and like before 9:00, I was on that Uber on the way to the ER. I didn't make it that far. I was like, I gotta go. I can't even make it to work, so I'm gonna just go. Something's obviously wrong here. I'm in pain. It feels like this thing on me, like this. It feels heavy, and it's just I could barely stand. Go in there in the triage. Very nice hospital. I went in right away. Had my own room. It was kind of nice. Like, this is comfy. And then, they did the urine test, the typical stuff, the vitals, all that good stuff. And then we're getting ready to do the sonogram because there's something inside. We got to see what's going on. And the sonographer comes in and he's like, your urine test shows that you're pregnant. I'm like, excuse me? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I was in disbelief, shock, excitement all at the same time. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, how am I pregnant? He's like, yeah, like it was very high. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, 6 weeks to be exact. And I almost like want to fall out. How am I pregnant? I had no idea. I learned right then in that moment I was pregnant. I was like, okay, wow. And I was like, okay, don't tell my husband, because he was on his way to the hospital. So don't tell him. I want to surprise him, because I'm like, oh, this is awesome news. Like, we're pregnant. What? We've been trying for so long and we've never gotten pregnant at all. So I was like, okay, don't tell him. And they agreed. They were like, okay, whatever. But something in the back of my mind said, something's not right here though. I may be pregnant, but something's wrong, because that pain, it was something else. And when he was doing the sonogram, when they inserted, it was so uncomfortable. I just wanted him to take it out like immediately. And he kept, turning it and he was there for a while. I've done sonograms before and I'm like, okay, it's not that long. And he was there for a long while, like just circulating the tool. And it was so uncomfortable, very painful. And then they told me, once the doctor came back in, they were like, you have an ectopic pregnancy, which means the pregnancy is not viable. Now, that was the first time I ever heard the term ectopic pregnancy. I was like, what is that? And they were like, oh, it's when, the uterus, the embryo is growing in the fallopian tube or in the wrong outside of the uterus. And I was like, oh, wow. Which explains the pain I was feeling. So it was in my fallopian tube, growing there for 6 weeks already. And yeah, that was the pain. And so by the time, and then they told me I had to do surgery, like emergency surgery. Because I could be hurt or die. I could be in real danger here if they don't take care of it right away. And so by the time that news broke out to me, my husband, he's already now coming in. So I had to tell him I was pregnant and not pregnant at the same time. Like, hey, babe, so I'm pregnant. And we are also not pregnant at the same time. I have an ectopic pregnancy and we have to do surgery to remove it. I have to remove my fallopian tube. All that at once. He was confused. He was kind of like, I don't understand what I'm hearing right now. And so that was a hard part for me, was telling him the news. But then at the same, it wasn't like joyous. It was just, everything happening all at once. That was the fastest I've ever seen. Like, everything was so fast for me. I learned I was pregnant and I was getting ready to go to the next hospital they were transferring me to on a carrier. So they got me on the ambulance. We were on the way and I met the doctor. They're like, yeah, it's, the ectopic pregnancy. And she was giving me my options, in terms of like the surgery or the shot. And the shot, I forgot what it's called, but it I guess it could remove the pregnancy, like end it, but the tissues will still be scarred. So the likelihood of me having another ectopic pregnancy will be kind of high. And the safest thing to do is remove the fallopian tube, especially that at 6 weeks. She said if it was like, a little bit sooner in the pregnancy, the shot would have been more viable. But because I was 6 weeks pregnant, it was just like, okay, you're going to have to remove it through surgery. And that's what I did that. I was like, yeah. And I felt at peace with that. I felt that's the right thing to do. And then, I did the surgery that night and went home. That afternoon, I went home that same night. I felt okay, as, it wasn't a painful surgery. I was home for about a few days, about a week, to recover. And that was literally the story of that loss. And it was kind of like, there was this weird dichotomy where I was pregnant. Like I was pregnant. Like that was the joy. Like we got pregnant, like out of nowhere. We didn't really, we doing our thing and it just happened. So the thing is, I can get pregnant, it's possible. At the same time, we still mourn the fact that that happened. Like we were not parents, we tried, and for us to hear that we're pregnant, we're also not pregnant, was really devastating to us. And it took us a time. I remember my husband feeling really sad during Father's Day because it happened and literally May 30th was the surgery. So it was end of May, and then, Father's Day is in June, and he was just like not okay. He was not okay. So that was a reality we lived with. And that's literally my journey right now. And, Mother's Day came around last year. That was my first time having Mother's Day. And, I've had friends and family being like, no, you're a mother. You know what I mean? Like, you're still a mom. You have a child in heaven and you still experience pregnancy. And to me, I feel like I don't know, it feels weird sometimes even saying that I was pregnant or, I don't know. I just feel like I didn't even carry it to term, or I didn't even show my belly, like nothing was growing there. So I kind of feel like I don't deserve to celebrate motherhood or deserve to celebrate Mother's Day or any of that stuff. I kind of felt left out in that. But I've, had a good support system where they're like, no, you were just as a mom as anybody else in here. You'd also experience loss. Just because you didn't carry a full belly and have a miscarriage or whatever, you still experience loss. Like you still, that's your testimony. That's your story. Like that's still real. It still happened to you. And I think because it happened so fast and happened all in one day, I think in my brain, it didn't register that I was actually pregnant. Had I known I was pregnant like 6 weeks prior, or maybe 2 more weeks prior to that time in the hospital, I guess it would be different because we didn't get a chance to like take the pregnancy test and jump for joy and be like, yay, and all that. Like, we're pregnant and then, then experience loss. We literally found out everything all at once. Everything was happening all at once. So for me, it was a blur. But I did experience postpartum, which was interesting. I had some hair shedding. I didn't even realize I was going through postpartum until someone pointed it out. And I was like, wow. And she was like, yeah, your body is still, it was pregnant. And then now, it's going through postpartum. And I was literally stunned by that. So I'm still stunned by that. I'm like, yeah, she's right. What's happening with my hair, that's postpartum. Whether you carry the child for 6 weeks or 8 or whatever time frame or 40 weeks, you experience, this is postpartum that you're going through right now. So I'm feeling the loss. I'm going through the physical aftermath of pregnancy with no child, with no baby, no nothing. And that was hard too. And I've gone through like in and out of just feeling the grief. Sometimes I forget about it. Sometimes it's very, clear in my head. The memory of that day comes back. Seeing, I also forgot to mention seeing other people, get pregnant during the time that we were trying and all that. I mean, there was one Christmas season, it was just hard because everybody was coming out with their announcements. I'm pregnant. And then we're at this point where we're having people have 2 kids. It's like the time is just going by. Like soon there'll be 3. Soon that we'll have another 3rd baby shower for, this particular person. And it's just been hard navigating that at times because it gets really difficult. And so where I'm currently at right now is I went to the fertility doctor. We decided to go back in August. Like, yep, let's go back to our doctor. And we did. And when we did the sonogram, my fibroid got bigger. So before it was 3.6 centimeters and then it became like 6.8, like pretty much twice the size. And then she also said that because of the size, it's blocking the right ovaries. So us trying to, now we're even thinking, at this point, IVF is the best option at this point. Even if we were to do IVF, we'll have a hard time trying to get the ovaries out because the fibroid is like literally blocking the view, when she was looking at the sonogram, it was blocking the view. It was blocking access to the ovaries on the right side. So I did an MRI. It took me a while. I was actually really upset about that visit, just learning about the fact that it grew and the fact that we're really going to have to entertain the idea of IVF. Nothing against it. I just didn't want that for me. We didn't want that for us. Really praying like, I don't want to go through that. That's like another, I've seen stories, the emotional burden, everything about it. I just was like, I would rather not go through that. But if that's the path that we have to go through, I'm here for it. But it took me like a month after that visit to actually get over that and like be at peace with it. Because my aunt called me right before I was getting ready to make an appointment with a fibroid specialist. And she was like, don't skip out on this opportunity to do the IVF. She said, don't skip it. And that's what she told me and revealed that her son, who's now 13, she had him through IVF. And I didn't know that. I was younger at the time. And, family, sometimes we don't talk about certain things. And I know she was trying to have a baby. I remember that, like she was trying and it was taking a while. And I was like, okay. But I didn't know it was actually IVF until she revealed it to me that day. So that to me was a sign, let's just go through it. Let's look for a doctor, a specialist to go through the surgery. So now I have to like remove the fibroid because when I did my MRI, it's not 6.8 centimeters, it's 10. So it's bigger than what the sonogram was able to show. And at that point, we're like, yeah, that's too big. That's enough to go ahead and have the surgery and, start IVF and all that stuff. So I'm literally going to have surgery. I believe it's next week, Tuesday, the 26th to be exact. So I am getting ready to remove this fibroid and then we'll start the IVF process once my body's fully healed. And that's kind of where I'm at now in my journey.
Thank you so much for taking us through that, Marsha. That was awesome. So how long does it take for your body to heal? Because that is, obviously they're doing a form of laparoscopic procedure to remove the fibroid. Is that how they're removing it?
Yes, it's the robotic way, the robotic laparoscopic, the same word you said. Yeah, that one.
So it may take, and it's outside of your uterus, correct?
Yeah, they said it's behind like on the wall, like behind the uterus.
Got you. So compared to, for those who are listening, a lot of people who do get fibroid surgeries, they get surgeries and they may be a longer recovery time when they have to remove fibroids inside of your uterus. Obviously, cutting inside of your uterus, you want it to make sure it's healed before they try to implant, or you try naturally to have a baby or go through IVF or IUIs to actually implant into the uterus. But outside the uterus, it may not take as long to heal. What are they saying? Probably 2 to 3 months for you, Marsha?
Yep. They said I would feel better after 2 weeks. They were like, yeah, you should be fine. But in terms of like you said, like trying to conceive again in any way, shape or form, whether it's natural or IUI or IVF, they're like 3 months, at least 3 months to let your body like be back before you try to, conceive again. So even with that, so that's like looking like, was it end of January? We'll be able to try to conceive by, I don't know, April, May.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah. So for those who are listening, is you definitely have to find a doctor and the right team for you that is going to listen to you. As Marsha has told her whole story, that is, are specializing in your condition and can really provide you the right understanding, especially when they're doing and surveying the size of fibroids or how bad your endometriosis is, or even folks who have PCOS, making sure they do the full scope. So for her to, for you to go, Marsha, and get, one, ultrasound and then come back and they actually do a full MRI, which shows that it's even bigger than what it showed in the ultrasound. It just lets you know, ultrasounds aren't always accurate, especially when it comes to for something that needs to be removed from your body. And then also how good your doctors were, because they wanted to get another, look at your uterus to understand exactly where it is and what kind of surgery was needed, before they even cut you open.
Right.
So I commend your doctors for doing that, because ultimately, yes, 10 centimeters is essentially what your cervix has to get to in order to
Right.
deliver a baby when you think about it. But the fact that that foreign body is in your body, taking up space for where a baby could go is just, or just in your cavity in general. I mean, it could be crushing anything from your intestines to your bladder, your colon, all of that is in that same region. And thank God it didn't cause you any other additional pain that you had already received. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I would love for you to leave the listeners with just some encouraging words. What has kept you through this journey? And what encouraging words can you leave with our listeners as they're navigating the different parts of their journey to motherhood?
Well, I'm a believer, so I'm going to say, talk to God. And that's literally prayer. And tell him everything. Do not hold back. Do not try to be cute with it. Literally, there's been times when I've told God, like, I am you and I right now, you played me. I feel like you're playing. I know God's not going to play me, but I said that. I'm like, I feel like you're playing me. I'm hurt right now. I can't even pray. I'm just going to lament, and that's okay. God can handle it. It's fine. He's not ashamed or afraid of your emotions. He knew. So I would say be totally transparent and vulnerable with God. If you're a believer, like, that to me is like very comforting to know that God can handle all my emotions, even the ones that aren't, like, I guess you would say, respectful in a way. Because I used to not want to talk to God in any way that's not like positive, but I've learned in my journey, nope, he's gonna get the unfiltered, raw, uncut version of how I'm feeling, because he was there when it happened. So in my journal, like, I write everything out, how I feel, and I want to go back to those moments when during that season to see what the kinds of things I was saying or the kinds of prayers I had, just to see how, like, God is bringing me through, and he has. So I would just say that's number one, like, just tell him everything. Number two, I would say find you community of sisters who are going through something similar that you're going through, or infertility or any kind of loss. I find that has helped me, even if it's one person that you can talk to about this, because I have a great support system. And I think that's like number 2A, I would say. Have a great support system, sisters who are praying with you and believing great things with you, for you. Like, they circle you in prayer. That's like number 2A. 2B is having even more of a closer relationship, or even if it's like every now and then that you're talking to someone who is also dealing with loss. Because I find that that's helped me along the way as well. Having a community, because it can feel very lonely. It can feel isolated. Like, you see everyone celebrating, you see everyone talking about their kids. There was times where I was in baby showers and everyone was pregnant and we just sat there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to be able to talk to someone else who's dealing with that, because sometimes, not to say that your support system is not great, but it's hard to talk to someone who already is, blossoming and already has the family that you're praying for. And not to say it in a very envious way, but it's hard because you don't understand exactly what I'm going through. So if there's anyone in your circle or anyone in your network or anybody, just reach out. Even if you don't really know them that well, just go reach out to them and say, hey, try to strike up a relationship with that person. It's been really helpful for me. I need to talk to someone who's dealing with the same thing I'm going through. It's very comforting, like I said, and sharing ideas and resources and experiences. I think that's one of the greatest things. And lastly, how I got through, or I guess advice for anyone else, I think talking about it out loud is going to help you too. I pause there because I'm doing it right now. So for me, I've never spoken to anyone about my testimony, my motherhood journey, like publicly up until now. So when I was just saying that, I just had to pause for a second. I'm like, whoa, like, I'm doing it right now. Like, don't be silent about it. Because there is a shame that's attached to it, especially as Black women. We don't talk about our fertility issues or what our mothers don't really, I guess, don't talk to us about that. Our aunties don't talk to us about and share the experiences, like all the details. I'm not talking about like, oh, this happened and we move on, but the details of their motherhood journey, that needs to be passed down. So let's not be quiet about that. I'm speaking to myself. as I'm saying it, like I'm preaching to myself right now, like, don't be silent about what you're going through. Like I said, there's a shame, this is awkward. You're supposed to reproduce, because the first thing they ask you is, what's wrong with you? Like, oh, you don't have kids yet. Like, what's wrong with you? I've heard that so many times from my mom's friends or people who haven't seen me in a long time. Oh, where's the baby? And I'm like, that awkward, like, that little awkward encounter. And they automatically think like something's wrong with you. That's another piece, like we're talking about couples, like both men and the woman, right? That's another topic too, like with the men and all that, like how are they dealing with it? What's their journey to fatherhood? And, because it's not always us, it's not always, what's wrong with our bodies, but like, again, it takes two to tango. So it's both of us. And so, like I said, like, I don't think being quiet about it is helping, because I feel like it actually intensifies the burden when you keep it in. And you carry that shame and that, I don't know what else, I don't want to say guilt, but you carry that shame and that embarrassment around. You want to release it. So like I said, like, that's why I said, like, talking to somebody about it, it can help. And then once you find your, if you're comfortable, once you start getting comfortable, I would say share it out, because someone else might be blessed by that. After my ectopic pregnancy, after that surgery, I think a few days later, I posted about it, and I got so many DMs about people who either had one, a family member who had one, and they were encouraging me, like, they had one and they had 3 kids, they're mother of 3 now or whatever, or someone else was going through fertility issues, reached out to me, and I didn't even know. And it's someone that I used to know or whatever. Like, it's just crazy how, like, once someone opens up their mouths or someone shares publicly, like, other people feel comfortable to reach out or to just, oh, me too. Oh my gosh, like, thank you for saying that. Like, I've been dealing with this for so long. So the more we talk about it, I guess more and more people will, be free to share, or also the stigma will be removed. The whole stigma of, like, we get pregnant right away, or, things like that. Like, there is a stigma attached to pregnancy, especially with Black women. Like, we're supposed to reproduce, it goes all the way back to slavery. Like, we're expected to make babies. And when we can't, it just adds more to it. It just adds more emotional baggage and all that. And I think if we can release it, that'd be great. And like I said, I'm speaking to myself. I am trying my best this year, especially to release the things that I've been holding on to. So I think that would be, those are my takeaways or my advice to anyone out there.
Yes, and we are sending you love, prayers, and all the baby dust as you go through your surgery recovery and through your IVF treatment this year. And then I'm going to have to bring you back on as a success story. So looking forward to that. So where can we connect with you after this? I'm sure we want to see you on social and follow your journey. So drop your socials for us.
Yes, it is Mrs. Derice, MRSDERICE. That's my Instagram. Marsha Derice is my Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marsha, for sharing your story with us. I know it is going to be a blessing to those who listen.
Thank you so much once again for having me, for even opening up your time today, and just opening this up for other women to sign up and, speak on this on the podcast. I think this is an amazing God-sent platform.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. There are so many ways to connect with the Sisters in Loss community. Join our monthly support group, our Sisters in Loss Healing Collective at sistersinlosshealing.com. Join our free Facebook group at sistersinloss.com/community, or text sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. That is sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sisters in Loss, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, girl, we on YouTube at Sisters in Loss TV. We love you for listening. Keep the faith. Until next time, This is Erica, and I'll talk to you soon.